Good afternoon. The Thurston County Critical Incident Investigative Team was requested by the Olympia Police Department to respond to this incident. This particular team is comprised of 5 agencies within Thurston County. It's the Thurston County Sheriff's Office, the Olympia Police Department, the Lacey Police Department, the Tumwater Police Department, and the Washington State Patrol. Because the Olympia Police Department is the agency that had the officer involved in this incident, they do not have an active role in this investigation at all. We have a total right now of 16 investigators that are involved in this case. They are 6 from the Sheriff's Office, 5 from the City of Lacey, 3 from the Washington State Patrol, and 2 from the Tumwater Police Department. The crime scene itself has been cleared at this time. There's been a large amount of evidence gathered there to include photographic evidence, physical evidence. At this point, we have interviewed in excess of 20 people. We have talked with one of the suspects in this case. It is an unfolding case. They're very fluid. The expectation is, and what this team's job is to do, is to look at this entire incident strictly on the criminal side of things. We're not involved in internal Olympia Police Department policies and procedures, internal investigations. That's not what we're doing. So from the start of this incident, which in this particular case starts at the West Olympia Safeway store, up until the time of the shooting, that is what we are investigating. And our job is to do a thorough, complete investigation using all of the techniques and tools we have available to us. And then we put together a complete package of the entire case, and we refer that to the prosecutor's office. And then the prosecutor's job, of course, is to make any charging decisions based on that investigation. We talked to the older brother, is the one that we spoke with. Andre Thompson.
What's the conditions?
The Andre Thompson is listed in serious but stable condition at Tacoma General at the last we checked, which was as of about an hour and a half ago. And his younger brother is at St. Peter's Hospital, listed in critical condition. According to the information provided by the healthcare providers at this time, they are both expected to survive their wounds. I don't really have the specifics, but I know there was a couple of witnesses from the Safeway store. I know there were some surrounding residents that heard part of the commotion that were interviewed. There were some family members that were interviewed. We interviewed several officers that responded after the fact that arrived on the scene. I believe we also interviewed some fire EMS personnel.
Were there any videos, or there any on lapel cameras or any recordings?
There was no body-worn cameras or vehicle-mounted cameras on the Olympia officer involved. We do have video from the Safeway store where this, the initial incident occurred.
Can you share what Mr. Thompson shared with you about what happened? What is he saying happened to him and his brother?
I don't have the specifics to that statement. I just realized, I know that we interviewed him.
You had a number of investigators there now, and you say you've been able to gather some evidence. Can you give us a better rundown of as I understand it, there were 2 separate incidents where one individual was shot, and then there was some sort of time lapse, and you probably recovered the shell casings. Can you give us an idea of how many rounds were fired?
I don't have the exact number at this point in time. There were several recovered. As far as the timeline, I haven't looked specifically at the timeline from when the officer initially stated shots had been fired up until the point where he stated, basically both subjects were down and he was waiting for his backup. So I don't know what that time frame is. It's not a long time frame, but I don't know the specifics on that.
So do you know how many shots were fired?
I do not.
Can you characterize the
thing called the assault skateboard. Did both have skateboards? One have a skateboard? And how were they used to assault Officer Donovan?
I can't answer the question as to how they were used because I don't have that information. I can verify that there were 2 skateboards that were recovered as evidence.
Do you have any information about, we heard earlier about an assault near the vehicle, near the officer's car. That's where the first shot apparently happened. Then he chases them into the woods and then
Could you
there's
speak up, please?
Yes, there's another confrontation. Is there any information about what the officer perceives as the threat in that second confrontation that led him to open fire again? And did he shoot both brothers at that point, or the second one, having wounded the first one previously?
I actually don't have an answer to that question at this point in time.
If I understand correctly, both of them were unarmed, did not have weapons. They had the skateboards. Officers have an array of tools in their bags, including tasers and others. Did the officer have a chance to use a taser or some other less detrimental force?
I don't have an answer to that question, sir.
Chief, can you answer if he had a taser?
I do believe he had a taser.
And did he deploy it?
Not that I'm aware of, but I don't know the answer.
Was the officer injured at all? Did he suffer any kind of bruises, lacerations? Was anybody else injured other than the 2 individuals who were shot? I mean, injured as in needing treatment?
Not to my knowledge.
For all the questions you don't have answers to or details to, when will those be available?
These investigations, they all vary in time, how long it takes to put together the entire packet. A vast majority of the investigation can be done within the first week or so, but then we're waiting for reports from outside entities. An example would be like the Washington State Crime Lab. There are certain things that we will have to send off to them. They will have to do their analysis and then get it back to us. So in order to give a complete package to the prosecutor's office, we have to try to get as much of that information back as possible. I don't really want to throw out any kind of a timeline. It would not be unusual for this to take 3 to 6 weeks. That would not be unusual. But keep in mind, the vast majority of the investigation could be complete in another week or so. It's just some of those, important but outstanding reports is they're going to be the delay.
Thank you.
You bet. And we have not taken a formal statement from the officer, which is normal protocol. It's usually a 48 to 72-hour period. We have scheduled to interview him on Tuesday, and I think at that time we'll get a better understanding of what his observations were and why he acted and reacted the way that he did.
But more
So it's my
generally
understanding
speaking,
that the
how would
officer's
you
not-
determine if an officer, in another case, generally speaking, how can you determine if an officer was truly fearful for their safety?
It would have to go a lot to their mindset, and that's what we get when we interview them, is we find out what they're thinking, what are they seeing, what threats are they perceiving, because I may perceive something one way and somebody else will perceive it a completely different way. So until we have that interview, I mean, obviously we have physical evidence that we're going to evaluate, and again, we put the package together, and then we will pass that off to the prosecutor's office for their ultimate findings.
Excuse me, Chief. I understand you say that the interview with the officer won't be occurring until, did I hear you say Tuesday?
I believe Tuesday is when we have it set.
We're talking Tuesday of next week?
Yes, sir.
That seems to me you would want to talk to the officer, right after the incident to get the information while it's fresh in his mind. So talk to us about that, Chief.
Okay, we don't conduct interviews with officers involved right after a critical incident because there has been a great deal of study that shows within the first 48, 72 hours, you are remembering things more clearly as a little bit more time passes. Not a lot of time, but a little bit more time. Because you have adrenaline going, you may say you did this when actually evidence would show that you didn't do that. We would offer that same opportunity to witnesses, victims. It's no different with the officer.
Well, and Sheriff, I understand that logic. It makes sense. It's rational. On the other hand, individuals in the public will say this, and that is, wow, sounds like to me the officer's been given time to figure out his story. of what he's gonna say and how he's gonna say it. And I'm not saying that's the case, and I am no way accusing that officer of that. But that is a perception.
And I understand that can be the perception.
You're familiar with the case in Cleveland? Cop stood on the hood of a car, pumped 15 shots out of his revolver into the windshield, and killed 2 innocent unarmed people, said he never feared more for his life.
I'm not familiar with the
Do you
incident.
have an idea of the distance between the officer and the 2 young men at the time of the shooting?
I do not.
Okay.